What are some red flags we should be watching out for when it comes to these things?
Yes. So the biggest thing I can say from an emotional standpoint is that scammers rely on urgency and fear. While there are certain scams that maybe prey on different types of emotions, like romance scams or different things like that, at its core, they are using urgency to scare you and get you into taking an action. Welcome back to the Money and More podcast. I'm Madison Foster.
And I am Ryan Bowling. It is a pleasure to be here again on the Money and More podcast. We have an exciting episode today. Well, I say exciting. Actually, I find this topic to be quite terrifying, but it is part of the world that we live in. We are talking today about digital financial scams, fraud, and everything related to that.
Yes, yeah. So today we're going to kind of talk about the most common scams that are happening right now, red flags that you guys can look out for, and then what to do if you think you've already been scammed or if you've perhaps been targeted. So, not the most fun topic ever, but we're going to have some really informative content for you guys today. So, excited to jump.
Absolutely. Yes, this one is broad. There is so much to talk about. We could probably do several episodes on this topic because it is so prevalent. You and I working in the banking industry, we see this a lot. We have to do a lot for our bank when it comes to fraud and communicating with customers when active fraud is happening. Like, for instance, we get attacks on our website fairly often. We put stuff out on social media. We are constantly trying to communicate the effects of fraud to customers and consumers alike. But let's look a little bit in the kind of, broad scope of things. Why do we see fraud on the rise right now?
Well, it's honestly just kind of a few different factors combined. For one, online fraud is just more sophisticated. As technology advances, so do the scams, unfortunately, and so do the tactics of the scammers. So not only are the different types of scams more sophisticated, they're also more common than we've ever seen because now there's so many different mediums and different channels that fraudsters can use kind of to attack. So that's unfortunately kind of what we're dealing with now in the rise of all these awesome pieces of tools and technology. There's also, of course, the downside to that as well. And there are ever changing tactics. So whether it's a suspicious email, a fake website, an urgent phone call, just something typically used to incite panic, there's lots of different ways they try to get people, but especially through technology and those digital channels. So that's kind of why we thought it would be important to talk about today. And additionally, identity theft is really kind of on the rise as well. So when someone gets a hold of your social security number or your account details just enough to kind of make another account or just do something fraudulent with, that's also something that we've seen for a long time, but it continues to be on the rise. So there's no way to just completely mitigate all of these things to get rid of fraud, to get rid of identity theft, but there are ways to definitely reduce your risk and reduce the chance that you'll be a victim of that. So that's kind of our goal today.
So before we jump into the common types of digital scams that we see in banking, do you have a story in this area? Have you been a victim of a scam or fraud attempt, or have you seen it?
I am pretty fortunate in that I've tried to do a pretty good job educating myself and I'm really pretty wary about stuff in general. So I have not been a victim so far, knock on wood. But I do know people, of course, that have been. And I will just say, like, I think there is a very common misconception that it's typically just like maybe uninformed like elderly people or people that aren't as tech savvy, and that is just simply not the case, especially in today's day and age. Like, it can really be advanced. In preparation for this episode, actually, I took an online test to see if I could tell the difference between what was AI and what wasn't, because that's something we're going to talk about later as well. I feel like I'm pretty well versed in that, and I will say I did not get 100%. So it's really
Wow,
not a matter of
really?
being gullible. Yeah, it's tough out here. So what about you? Have you gone through something?
Yes, actually, a couple times. And like you, I mean, I'm a digital native, although, they call me a geriatric millennial, but still, I have grown up, with all this digital stuff. I'm incredibly tech savvy. So Yes, the first time I was at the Renaissance Festival in Kansas City, because that's how I roll. So I got a phone call from my credit card company, and they said, "Hey, Ryan, just wanted to let you know we have put a freeze on your credit card. We wanted to ask, were you trying to buy?" I think they were trying to buy maybe like some canoes or kayaks or something like that. This was several years ago. And I was like, oh no, definitely did not try to buy that. So thanks for letting me know about that. So one of them was just, somebody out there, I guess, guessing credit card numbers, or I had been part of a data breach. So
Okay.
unbeknownst to me, they were, using credit card numbers to try to buy stuff online, and it worked on mine. But fortunately, the credit card company refunded all of that, and I wasn't out anything. Had another one though a couple years ago. My family was the victim, so to speak, of one of those Facebook hacks where someone had their Facebook hacked, put out a post saying, "Hey, I'm having this massive yard sale. Why don't you buy all this awesome stuff?" and posted pictures of like bedroom furniture and dining room tables. And so we were like, well, hey, we could use some of this stuff. So sent them a message, said, "Hey, what's the price for this?" And they said, "Oh, here you go." Made us a great deal, asked for money through Zelle. And so we sent a few $100s and could not get that back. So that person's Facebook had been hacked, and we fell victim to that. So that was money we did not recoup. So there's a big difference between what credit card companies are willing to do for you if you are the victim of a scam versus what some of these other payment providers can do. So there is a lot to talk about when it comes to this, but we will jump into some of the common types of digital scams.
Yeah, so that's an excellent point. And I will just say, on behalf of OMB Bank, and I know you know this as well, we have an excellent IT department. We do utilize different software companies and monitoring devices are in place to make sure that we are proactive about when there is some sort of attack or attempted attack on us or on customer information. Any of those, we're very diligent about safeguarding all of our customer information, future customer information, and so we do keep a close eye on that. We just ask, of course, just like any bank, that our customers do their part to stay diligent as well. And what we always say is, if you're not sure, if something doesn't feel right when you're signing into your online banking, or you do get a message from us that doesn't feel right, just always just give us a call, and we can tell you. But please know that just like many other banks, we are trying to do what we can to prevent that. But
No, that's a good point. And that's a kind of a cost of doing business these days for any bank that is offering, online account opening, digital banking, mobile banking, all of those things. So yes, we absolutely take precautionary measures to safeguard against those types of things. So great points. Next, tech support scams. So you might receive a call or a pop-up warning that's claiming your device has a virus, asking for remote access to it. Definitely keep in mind that legitimate companies are not going to contact you this way. They're not suddenly going to pop up on your iPhone or your Android or your laptop and say, "Hey, you might have a virus. Give me your password and I'll help protect you." That's not how legitimate companies operate. So if that happens to you, immediately try to close out of your browsers. If you think any of your logins might have been compromised, start changing your passwords. That's not how companies are going to try to communicate with you.
yeah, and then the next one is one of the more common ones, but because of that, it's also one of the more successful ones, unfortunately. If you're someone that works with technology or computers at all, there's a very good chance that in your professional life, you've had to do some sort of training or different things over this. And we hear about it a lot, but we don't always know what it is. And that's phishing, which can come in the form of like emails, texts, and kind of like what we talked about earlier. It's typically where people are pretending to be someone else. So it may look like it's from a legitimate retailer that you shop with. It may look like it's from the federal government. It may look like it's from your bank. And they'll typically send you some sort of digital communication, and they may ask you to like click a link or to verify your information, verify funds, something like that. So like we did mention, I can't drive it home enough. OMB Bank and any legitimate bank is not going to ever ask for sensitive information like your account numbers, passwords, access IDs, any of that via email or text. We just simply won't do that. But again, there are some things you can look out for with those. So misspellings, a sender that you don't recognize, a non-verified sender, or something, if it's a retailer that you've never shopped with in your entire life, that can often be a red flag. Like, how would they even have your email in the first place? So different things like that you can do to safeguard. But I would just say a really, really big thing to be wary of. If there is some sort of link that you're being asked to click in an email, especially if it's an email or a text message that you weren't expecting, be very, very wary and do your diligence before clicking on that, because there's a lot that can come into that. There are different ways people can remotely, infect your computer or your device with different things. And again, not to scare anyone, but these are just like the legitimate concerns. So just always be cautious before you're clicking on things or going to different places that you're maybe not familiar with.
Yeah, I would say with the invention of like these robo dials, robo texters, that can crank out just millions and millions of text messages, just seeing what phone numbers hit, what email addresses, deliver. Yeah, phishing emails and those text message scams, they are more prevalent than they have ever been, and they have always been prevalent. So that's the one that I think will probably never go away. You can't avoid it. It just takes constant vigilance on everybody's part. The next one we have, too good to be true investments or loans. So if you're getting messages about guaranteed returns or crypto schemes or loans that are requiring upfront payments, those are major red flags for these types of scams. Some of these scams, they specifically target certain demographics like veterans or the elderly, just trying to prey upon those groups that can be vulnerable to these types of message. But probably has always been the adage: if it is too good to be true, then it really is. So pay attention to what your gut instincts are telling you about if something is legitimate, because it probably isn't. And definitely take precautions if you're receiving messages like that to make sure that they're verified, they're legitimate, and yeah, if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
And I will just say, I take any opportunity to plug our awesome informational resources, but we do have a really great page on our ownbbank.com website that's full of a lot of the information that we're going over today, and then some. I know I wrote an article about different scams that target veterans in particular. I have some veterans in my family, so that was something important to me. I know you've written some pieces of content. So again, just like we always say with any of these topics that we go over with you guys, the more educated and informed you can be, the better. Because if you can help yourself and kind of know the red flags and what to watch out for, it's a lot more proactive rather than reactive, which of course is better in these situations. So the next one we have, no fun romance scams. So we've all heard the phrase getting catfished and things like that. This is when someone that you've never heard of that claims to maybe be a friend of a friend of a friend, sometimes they may claim to be a celebrity, sometimes they may claim to be your long lost lover from another country, someone that's in a financial crisis, or a family member is in urgent need of funds. Essentially, what they do at the core is they just try to woo you and then get your sympathy. And so then once you have that sort of emotional connection built with them, and sometimes this can affect people for months or years, building a fake relationship, and then they'll ask you for money. And then of course, once you send it, you're probably never going to meet this person in real life. You might not ever hear from this person again. And what's really unfortunate, and something that I saw during my time in retail banking, is that often with these types of scams, the fraudsters want their victims to send funds via wire transfer. And what's really unfortunate, with a few exceptions, wire transfers typically are not recoverable. And that's why it's so crucial as bankers, when we are sending a wire on behalf of our customers, to make sure that we're gathering all the information, that we have all the information from someone's ID that we need, just everything. We double check, triple check for typos, all of that. And that's why, just because even if you transpose numbers, it can be really hard to get that fixed. It's not unheard of, but it is uncommon. And so that's one thing that's really tough with romance scams in particular. People typically ask for either funds through like gift cards or wire transfers, both of which you typically cannot get back.
Yeah, that one is especially terrifying, I think, because it is probably much more common than people realize. Because I think A lot of times the victims become embarrassed by it. They don't want to come forward and admit that they were the victim of something like this. But it is obviously, and we'll talk about it later, it is important to make sure you get past that and you say something and you take the proper steps if you have been the victim of something like this. So we have just a couple more suspicious messages from friends. If someone you know sends a strange message or a link, their account may be compromised. Always verify through another method before responding to something that you think it doesn't really sound like them. So this is similar to the story I shared at the top of the episode where yeah, we were the victim of something like this, where someone's Facebook account had been hacked, and someone made a post on their behalf, and we thought that that was legitimate when really it wasn't. And so these things happen all the time, so you have to really be careful about them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always so tough because of course you don't want to question people in your social circle, but sometimes it can protect you and them because oftentimes they don't even know their account's been compromised. So just ask the uncomfortable questions. The
Mhm.
worst they can say is like, "No, I really am having a yard sale. Here you go."
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the final type that we're going to talk about today, which is the most terrifying to me personally, is AI scams. So we have talked about AI and the rise of AI, both positive and negative, on this podcast. There are certainly pros and cons. But with AI being more prevalent than ever and being more advanced than ever, there is absolutely an onslaught of new scams that tie right along with AI and more sophisticated ones at that. So there's lots of different ways that AI can kind of be involved. One thing that I find personally terrifying is deep fake content. So anyone that's chronically online or that's young enough has probably been familiar with this concept, but it's basically just where a different user can impersonate someone else or can make something appear to have happened that never happened. Sometimes it involves like animals doing funny things like jumping on a trampoline or a person saying something that they actually never said. And it's getting harder and harder kind of to discern what's real from what's fake, which is again terrifying. There are a lot of advantages to this type of technology, but there are also a lot of disadvantages. And that's why people are working on legislation and all kinds of different things around that, just because there's a lot of repercussions. And so certainly be aware of different things like that and just how advanced these attacks can be. One study that I found in my research that I thought was particularly staggering was a report by Home Security Heroes. I guess they had AI try and crack some passwords, and it was able to crack 51% of 15.68 million common passwords in less than 60 seconds.
Yeah, so that's like what, almost 8 million passwords it cracked in a minute. Like that's unbelievable. Which shows, yeah, you should be setting strong passwords, especially things that are not real words, because AI can break it, faster than Nicolas Cage can. So
And unique passwords at that. We're going to gloss over the Nicolas Cage, but because if I've been guilty of that in the past, it's like I only have so many creative ideas up in this noggin of mine, and so if I'm not using a password generator, I have my familiar few that I used to use. But I mean, if you think about it realistically, if whether it's a real person or AI or whatever it is cracks one, and you've used something either identical or very similar across all of your logins, they could potentially be into everything in like a day. And so not only is it important to use very strong passwords, with a good strong combination of capitals, lowercase, symbols, numbers, all of that, but also make sure that you're doing unique logins across your different your different secure logins that you're utilizing.
yeah, absolutely. Well, now that we've sufficiently scared everybody with all the various scams that are out there that they could be the victims of, what are some red flags we should be watching out for when it comes to these things?
Yes. So the biggest thing I can say from an emotional standpoint is that scammers rely on urgency and fear. While there are certain scams that maybe prey on different types of emotions, like romance scams or different things like that, at its core, they are using urgency to scare you and get you into taking an action. And oftentimes, in a way that you maybe wouldn't normally. You wouldn't take the time to stop and ask questions or verify just because you're afraid or you think you're in a rush or you think you need to do something for someone. So there are a few common warning signs with those. First one, unsolicited contact asking for personal information or a payment. If it's something that you haven't initiated and someone or a business is just randomly reaching out to you, seemingly out of nowhere, wanting confirmation, wanting payment, wanting information, anything like that, immediate red flag. Same thing with if in the subject line or if within the text message body or the phone call, whatever it is, they're using urgent, scary language like your account's been suspended, take action now, immediate action required. Those are all things, again, to instill fear and make you think that you've done something wrong or that some account is going to be closed and that you have to take action right now. And the reason for that is so you don't take the time to stop and recognize that this probably is a scam, which if most people took the time to kind of slow down and think about that, they would realize that. Emails that don't address you by name, of course, this can vary somewhat because obviously not every single company that sends out mass marketing emails are going to personalize each one. But if there in particular is an email from someone like within your organization, a friend, like an actual individual, and it doesn't even address you by name, or there's a lot of typos, or they're speaking in a way that's not like them, or in a business email, it's not professional. All of those things can be warning signs as well. Same with unusual formatting. How to type an email is pretty standard. Obviously, everyone texts different and different things like that, but you can often tell. I mean, you get familiar with your workplace and your family and friends and even the businesses that you opt into marketing communications, kind of how those emails come through to you and how they look. If there's one that's just completely out there and the formatting is just really off from anything you've received before, that's a red flag. And then, of course, this is an obvious one, but a big one. Any requests for gift cards, wire transfers, payment apps, any sort of payment, cash, I mean, anything, that's a red flag. So the biggest thing that I can't stress enough in these situations is if something feels off, pause. Taking just that moment to think can really stop fraud. And that scammers want you to act quickly. Yeah, so those are some red flags that you guys can all look out for, common things to maybe be aware of. But the biggest thing I can say is if something feels off, pause. Again, scammers rely on a sense of urgency and they want you to act quickly. So taking just a moment and a breath to kind of investigate further, see if something feels off, verify with another party, it can really stop fraud in its tracks. So
Yeah, I think that's incredibly important, and probably, the greatest takeaway you can get from this is to stop and think, why is this being sent to me? And if you take a little time to think about that and answer it, you'll probably discover that, hey, this is not legitimate.
absolutely. Yeah. So now on the flip side of that, some ways that you can protect yourself and encourage your friends and loved ones to do the same. So Ryan, what are some steps people can take here to protect their information?
Sure, absolutely. So, first thing, probably a no-brainer, but never share your PIN numbers or your passwords with anybody, even if it's someone who's claiming to be the bank. They're not going to ask, well, what is your password? I can help you out with that. You will always be the one to enter your password, or if they need to help you reset your password, they're still never going to ask for it. So use strong passwords, avoid easily guessed information like birthdays, anniversaries, birthdays of your children, anything that maybe could be found on social media. Um, Fraudsters are going to be able to piece that stuff together. So if you say you have your birthday out there on your Facebook account, or you post something to your spouse saying happy anniversary on this particular date, those are all things that fraudsters can find and see and can put together. And they could probably guess your password is your cat's name and your mother's birthday. Like, that stuff's not hard for them to figure out. So if you have information like that that's out there on your social media, then you should probably look to strengthen your passwords. Enable two-factor authentication wherever possible. So that two-factor authentication is where you put in your password and then it texts you a code to, like, your phone number or to the associated email address that hopefully you're the only person that has access to. And then you have to provide that code to then enter the website or portal or whatever login you're trying to get into. So if something offers that two-factor authentication, absolutely take advantage of it. That is to your security and your benefit. Shred sensitive documents before throwing them away. So maybe you get your bank or credit card statements in the mail. Be sure to shred those things. Anything that may have had an account number, or maybe you wrote a password down, shred that stuff before you throw it in the trash. Because, yeah, there are definitely people out there who are willing to go through it and try to get your information that way. So shred those things. Maybe I go overboard, but I will shred them and throw them into different trash cans. and take the trash out at different times so that it's not even appearing in the same trash bin at the same time. So that is just me personally, but I'm sure I'm not alone there. So absolutely take the time to do stuff like that because it's gonna help protect you in the long run. So secure your personal information at home and at work. If you have access to a safe, use a safe. Some people will use a safe deposit box at a bank. You can certainly keep it secure there. And then keep it secure digitally too. Use password vaults and keychains and things like that to help secure your digital information that way as well. Avoid using public Wi-Fi for banking or financial transactions. Anything that that could be considered sensitive. Do not use public Wi-Fi to access those things because you might not actually be on public Wi-Fi. You could be connected to somebody who's got a device or a computer set up that's posing as Wi-Fi access, and they are capturing your credentials and login information that way. So use secure Wi-Fi. Use now almost all smartphone plans come with hotspots that built into your data plans. Connect to things like that instead of using public Wi-Fi. Monitor your bank accounts and your credit reports regularly. We talk about that pretty often here on this podcast, but definitely log into your online banking, if not every day, certainly once or twice a week, just to make sure the transactions that you're seeing are transactions that you actually used and that everything looks the way you expect it to look. Access your credit reports at least on that annual basis. If not more often, use apps maybe like Credit Karma to get more instantaneous looks at how your credit may be changing, but take advantage of things like that to see if you've been the victim of fraud and something is impacting your accounts or your credit. And then remove mail promptly from your mailbox and place vacation holds when needed. It's pretty easy now through most apps to let your bank or your credit card company know if you're going on vacation and you do expect to maybe use your debit card while you're in another country or territory, or if you don't expect to, let them know that as well. And they can certainly monitor for that type of stuff. So checking your credit report at least once a year is one of the best ways to catch fraud early. And you can get a free report from each credit bureau at annualcreditreport.com. We've got more information about that, of course, all over the onbbank.com website, so you can check out your credit report that way. But those are definitely some ways you can help protect yourself, safeguard yourself from these various digital scams that are out there and looking to take advantage of you.
Yeah, those are awesome tips, Ryan. Thank you. And we actually have a partnership with the American Bankers Association, and they have an awesome campaign that I utilize a lot on our social media platforms called Banks Never Ask That. Mm-hmm. So in this segment, we're going to talk a little bit about what OMB or what your bank will never ask, because that's important enough to repeat. So just as a reminder, your bank will never ask you for your full account number, your online banking passwords, any access IDs, any PIN numbers, and that includes like ATM debit card pins, any security codes, or any sensitive information via email or text. If someone claims to be from OMB Bank or from any bank and is asking you for this information, hang up and call their customer service number immediately, or whoever your representative is from the bank that you work with, and they'll be able to tell you pretty quickly, like, that was us, or hey, no, it wasn't. Don't give that person any information. But just know that any reputable bank is not going to gather that information over the phone or via email like that to begin with. Having your passwords and things like that is not something that your bank needs to be able to assist you. So even if it seems very legit or it seems urgent, don't just hand that stuff over, but always feel free to give us a call.
Yeah, and I will say that it's obviously, it's pretty common for someone to think, well, I don't want to be rude to the person that I'm talking to and just hang up on them. But I can promise you, I have never met a customer service rep who was upset that someone hung up on them and then tried to call back to explain that they felt like who they were talking to was not legitimate. That will never happen. No customer service rep is going to be upset with you for taking that precaution. They are absolutely going to understand. They're probably going to commend you for it because that is absolutely the right thing to do.
Yeah, and it honestly it can kind of help them in the long run because it's if you are protecting yourself from getting scammed against someone that's not a scammer, that means you're also doing so against people that are scammers, and that's going to save us work, you heartache. So it's good all around. Definitely a valid concern, but yeah, I'll just echo what Ryan said. Don't be afraid to just kind of hang up, and then if you call back and you get the same customer service representative, or you find out, hey, that was legitimate. Sure, you can talk to them again, be transferred, just kind of explain why, and yeah, that'll never be an issue. So what can you do if you think you've already been scammed, Ryan? Like what if you're kind of past that point of being proactive, what options do you have?
Yeah, so this is the one that probably people hesitate to do the most, but it's might be the most important step is you've done all this work to protect yourself and still you fell for a scam. So number one, contact your bank immediately so that they can help secure all your accounts. They can, help put freezes on things. They can start, changing passwords. They can start the process to help recover funds. But the first immediate thing you should do is contact your bank and or your credit card company and tell them that you believe you've been the victim of some sort of scam or fraud. You should report the fraud to the credit bureaus and any affected creditors. So once you've got your immediate needs taken care of with your bank accounts, access to your actual money, you should report that fraud to the credit bureaus so that they can then monitor, be aware of that activity, and take necessary steps to help protect you there. You should also consider placing fraud alerts on your credit report. So that's related to that step, just to let that sort of begin the process of protecting your credit and how important your credit is to you. And then you should, lastly, but also importantly, these scams, this fraud is still a crime, and you should file a report with local law enforcement. Usually it's with your county's sheriff department saying that you were a victim of a scam and the events surrounding that. Give as much detail as you can to them because they will look to either add it to reports that they are doing, if they have enough information to do an investigation and potentially prosecute. But absolutely, you should file a report with local law enforcement about the type of scam or fraud that you were involved in. And you should, just be aware that you're not alone, that this happens to thousands and people every year. Millions and millions of dollars are impacted by it. But acting quickly can really help limit the damage, and it's important to do it as fast as possible.
Yeah, those are awesome tips as well. Well, we are reaching the end of our episode. So before I close us out, Ryan, did you have any final thoughts to leave our listeners with? Any sharp and witty commentary so that they can not be victims themselves?
Well, again, I will reiterate that, if something is too good to be true, it probably is. And if something seems urgent and you can't figure out why, then it's probably a scam. And you should pay attention to those instincts that you have because there's a reason why it's sticking out to you. And don't be afraid to hang up on somebody if it doesn't feel right. Don't be afraid to close out of apps if it doesn't look right, and protect all of your passwords. If you suddenly got something that popped up on your phone, maybe it was through Facebook and it didn't look right, start changing your passwords. That stuff will matter. So absolutely be on the lookout.
For sure. Yeah. And I will just add to that to say the best defense against fraud truly is awareness paired with a healthy skepticism. That doesn't mean that every single email or piece of digital communication you receive is someone out to get you. But if you also don't treat everything as if it's completely trustworthy, that'll be really helpful as well. So when in doubt, don't respond, don't immediately take action, just verify. So just know that protecting your information is an ongoing process. It's something that you have to do forever. And small habits and different things that we've gone over today can really make a huge difference. So that'll do it for today. But thank you for listening to the Money More podcast. Stay safe, stay informed, and we will see you next month.
All right. See ya.
The Money and More podcast is owned by OMB Bank. OMB and its affiliates do not provide legal, tax, or accounting advice. You should consult your legal and/or tax advisors before making any financial decisions.